A Democrat congresswoman tried to humiliate a young conservative woman on live TV, but she didn't count on Greg Gutfeld being in the room. What happened next wasn't just brutal, it broke the internet. You're going to want to see this. You just embarrassed yourself on national TV. That sentence didn't just echo across a studio, it exploded across the internet. Those powerful words, delivered by Fox News host Greg Gutfeld, became the viral moment of the week. The reason? A heated political exchange that quickly spiraled into a cultural clash involving three major names in today's media landscape. Jasmine Crockett, a rising Democrat congresswoman from Texas, Karoline Leavitt, a young conservative powerhouse, and of course, Gutfeld himself, the man known for turning sharp political commentary into must-watch entertainment. The drama started like many TV debates do, a political roundtable filled with tension, opinions, and clashing ideologies. Crockett and Levit were guests on the same panel, meant to discuss the 2024 election outlook, youth in politics, and the growing divide between conservatives and progressives. Everything seemed somewhat civil at first. But then, Jasmine Crockett, never one to hold back, took things in a sharply personal direction. With a smirk and a swipe, she began mocking Karoline Leavitt, targeting not just her political views, but also her appearance and age. It was subtle at first, veiled sarcasm that quickly escalated into direct jabs. "She's what, 25? 26? Crockett said, rolling her eyes. "You can barely rent a car at that age, let alone understand how government really works." There was a chuckle or two from the panel. Crockett wasn't done. She continued. "Some people just get lucky with a blonde blowout and a ring light. Doesn't mean they should be taken seriously." That comment landed like a brick. In just a few seconds, the tone in the room shifted. The insult wasn't about policies or ideas, it was personal. It felt shallow, condescending, and frankly, out of place in what was supposed to be a professional discussion. And that's when Greg Gutfeld leaned forward. With that infamous half-smile he wears before delivering a verbal knockout, Gutfeld turned to Crockett and dropped the line that would dominate headlines. "You just embarrassed yourself on national TV." The studio fell silent, but Gutfeld wasn't finished. He delivered a calm but devastating rebuttal, one that didn't just defend Karoline Leavitt, but exposed the hypocrisy and double standards often seen in political commentary today. "Jasmine," he said, "if Karoline were a Democrat, you'd be calling her brave, bold, and progressive. You'd say she represents the future of politics. But because she's conservative, you reduce her to her hair? Her age? You didn't criticize her ideas. You insulted her image, and that says more about you than it does about her." Boom. It was one of those moments where even the audience didn't know how to react. You could hear a pin drop, and just like that, the internet took over. Clips of the exchange were uploaded to Twitter, now X, TikTok, and YouTube within minutes. The hashtag #Gutfeld clapback started trending. Conservative influencers reposted it with captions like, "This is why Gutfeld is untouchable, and Karoline didn't need to speak. Greg handled it." Even users on the left were split, some calling Gutfeld's remarks harsh but fair, others accusing him of being too aggressive. Regardless of political leaning, one thing was clear. This moment was authentic, raw, and unfiltered. Everything. Social media craves in today's hyper-polarized climate. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt, to her credit, kept her cool. She didn't fire back or escalate the drama. Instead, she simply tweeted, "Some insults aren't worth dignifying, but I'm grateful to a Greg Gutfeld for reminding America what real leadership looks like." Mic drop again. The beauty of that response? It was calm, composed, and classy, traits that contrasted heavily with the earlier mockery from Crockett. This incident wasn't just a political skirmish. It was a snapshot of how women, in politics, especially young conservatives, are often unfairly dismissed. And it showed that defending someone doesn't require rage or theatrics, just truth, well delivered, And when it comes to delivering truth with style, Greg Gutfeld proved once again that no one does it better. It all began like any other primetime. Political segment, multiple guests, hot topics, and high expectations. But no one watching that night expected the calm discussion to spiral into one of the most explosive viral moments of the week. At the center of the storm, Jasmine Crockett, a Democrat congresswoman from Texas known for her bold, often unapologetic style, and Karoline Leavitt, a young rising star in conservative media and former Trump White House staffer. The two were part of a live panel set to debate the role of young voices in politics, especially women stepping into leadership roles. But what should have been an inspiring discussion quickly turned into something personal and ugly. As Karoline Leavitt calmly laid out her views on the importance of free speech, border security, and restoring traditional values in America, Crockett could barely hide her growing disdain. Her body language told the story, rolling her eyes, crossing her arms, and letting out quiet chuckles as Leavitt spoke. Then came the verbal strike that shifted the mood of the entire room. Crockett interrupted with a sarcastic laugh, leaned into the mic and said, "Karoline's just another unserious mouthpiece for MAGA talking points. I mean, come on, how many times do we have to hear the same script?" Leavitt raised her eyebrow but didn't respond. She stayed composed. But Crockett wasn't done. She took it further, way further. With a smug grin, Crockett added, "Some folks just get lucky with a blonde blowout and a camera. Doesn't mean they know what they're talking about." The studio audience let out a few scattered chuckles, but it wasn't the hearty laughter Crockett might have been expecting. Instead, it felt awkward, uncomfortable. The camera panned to Leavitt, who simply blinked and smiled politely, refusing to stoop to Crockett's level. But the real tension was building just a few feet away. Greg Gutfeld, Fox News personality, host of Gutfeld, and veteran of political showdowns, was watching it all unfold, and his expression slowly turned from amused to irritated. Crockett continued her rant. She jabbed one more time, questioning Leavitt's intelligence and qualifications. Does she even know how government works? Or is she just reading from the Trump playbook like it's a bedtime story? That was the final straw. Gutfeld leaned forward, that signature smirk creeping onto his face, the kind that signals a rhetorical storm is coming. He adjusted his chair slightly, locked eyes with Crockett, and in a calm, cutting tone, delivered the line that would instantly go viral. "You just embarrassed yourself on national TV." There was a pause. Crockett blinked. The audience was stunned. And within seconds, the temperature in the room dropped, but Gutfeld wasn't finished. In one of the most surgical takedowns live TV has seen in recent memory, he continued, "Instead of addressing Karoline's ideas, you attacked her appearance. You dismissed her based on her hair, her age, and a camera lens. That's not politics. That's pettiness." He paused again, long enough to let the weight of his words settle. If Karoline were a liberal, you'd call her inspiring. You'd have her on the cover of a magazine. But because she's a conservative, she's fair game for cheap shots? The crowd began to murmur. Some nodded. Others sat still, stunned. And Gutfeld closed it out with a final blow. Disagree with her all you want, but the moment you attack the person instead of their position, you've lost the debate. It was a masterclass in composure and clarity. What made the moment even more powerful was how Karoline Leavitt remained calm and silent throughout. She didn't interrupt. She didn't yell. She let Gutfeld's words do the work. In that moment, the entire energy of the segment flipped. Crockett, who moments earlier had been grinning and cracking jokes, now looked visibly caught off guard. Her confident demeanor faded, and she fumbled through her next sentence. But it didn't matter. The cameras caught everything, and so did social media. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. Twitter exploded. TikTok creators began making reaction videos. Conservative commentators called it a savage moment of truth. Even some left-leaning voices acknowledged that Crockett had crossed a line. The hashtag #WasGutfeld vs Crockett started trending before the show even ended. Greg Gutfeld, without shouting, without cursing, had turned a nasty personal attack into a viral lesson in political respect, and in doing so, reminded millions of viewers why personal integrity, especially in public debates, still matters. And Karoline Leavitt. She didn't have to say a word to come out on top. Greg Gutfeld didn't flinch. He didn't stutter. And he definitely didn't hold back. As the tension in the studio thickened and Jasmine Crockett leaned smugly in her chair after mocking Karoline Leavitt's looks, age, and experience, Gutfeld leaned forward too. But not to interrupt. No, he waited for just the right moment, the kind of pause that signals you're about to be roasted on live TV. Then, he let it rip. Wow, Jasmine. Did you rehearse that line in front of a mirror, or did it come naturally shallow? The entire room let out an audible gasp. Even the host, trying to keep the conversation from going completely off the rails, looked momentarily stunned. Crockett blinked, clearly not expecting to be called out so directly. But Greg wasn't done. In fact, he was just getting started. With the kind of sharp precision that's made him a household name, Gutfeld continued his takedown. If Karoline were a Democrat, you'd be on the cover of Vogue praising her as a powerful young voice for change. But because she's conservative, you reduce her to a hairdo and a hashtag. That's not wit. That's not clever. That's bias, plain and simple. The studio audience was silent, dead silent. Everyone knew they were watching. A moment, not just a TV exchange, but something raw, real, and about to go viral. And then came the knockout punch. The line that would be clipped, replayed, and memed across the internet. Karoline Leavitt has more political experience than you did when you got elected. But you know what she doesn't do? She doesn't insult other women to score cheap applause. Boom. Crockett's confident smirk disappeared. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't respond right away. She couldn't. Greg had just turned her entire insult campaign into a massive self-own, and did it with the calm intensity of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. The panel went completely quiet. For a full 3 seconds, eternity in live television, no one spoke. No one dared to jump in. It was as if the room collectively realized something had just shifted. Gutfeld had flipped the script, and Jasmine Crockett was no longer holding the high ground. Then the silence broke, not with words, but with a surge of applause and laughter from the crowd. Some were clapping out of agreement. Others were reacting to the sheer boldness of Gutfeld's takedown. But the message was clear. He won that exchange. Completely. And once again, Karoline Leavitt didn't need to say a word. She sat quietly, composed, offering only a slight smile. In doing so, she came across as the adult in the room, a professional, who knew her worth didn't come from snapping back or trading insults, but from staying grounded while the chaos unfolded around her. Crockett, on the other hand, looked shaken. Trying to recover, she mumbled something about how she was just joking, and that people need to lighten up. But it was too late. The crowd wasn't laughing anymore. The damage was done, and not to Karoline. On social media, the moment spread like wildfire. Clips were instantly uploaded to Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube with titles like, "Greg Gutfeld humiliates Jasmine Crockett, live on TV." Crockett versus Gutfeld, the clapback heard around the internet. Gutfeld destroys the double standard in 30 seconds flat. Even political commentators who usually didn't align with Gutfeld admitted he nailed it. Right-wing influencers praised his defense of Levit, calling it a rare example of men standing up for women without making it about themselves. Left-wing voices were divided, some saying Crockett was just being sassy, while others admitted her jokes had crossed a line. One viral tweet summed it up perfectly. Gutfeld didn't just defend Karoline. He defended the idea that women, all women, deserve respect, no matter their party. And that's what really hit home, because beyond the politics, beyond the left versus right drama, what unfolded was a moment of principle. A moment when one person used their platform to draw a clear line between policy debate and personal disrespect, and came out on top doing it. Greg Gutfeld reminded viewers everywhere that you don't need to shout to be powerful. You don't need to insult to win an argument. And most importantly, you don't have to stay silent when someone crosses the line, even if that someone is sitting right next to you. Within minutes, the internet did what it does best, blew the moment wide open. The clip of Greg Gutfeld calmly dismantling Reppers Jasmine Crockett after she mocked Karoline Leavitt was uploaded to X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and even Facebook. And just like that, the hashtag Gutfeld vs. Crockett began trending across platforms. It wasn't just trending, it was everywhere. On X, users flooded the timeline with reactions, some shocked, some cheering, and others just trying to keep up with the drama. This was straight up savage, one user posted alongside a 30-second clip of Gutfeld's viral clapback. Did she really think that line would land? Embarrassing, another replied, quote tweeting Crockett's moment of silence after the takedown. What caught people off guard was how the fallout crossed party lines. While conservatives were celebrating Gutfeld's defense of Levit, even, some liberal-leaning commentators called out Crockett's behavior. One viral post read, "Disagree with Karoline Leavitt's politics all you want, but mocking her appearance?" That's not a good look, especially coming from another woman in politics. It wasn't just political influencers weighing in. Verified journalists, culture critics, and even TV hosts were chiming in. A journalist from a centrist outlet wrote, "This is exactly why people are tired of political panels." Crockett had a chance to engage, but chose cheap shots. Gutfeld, for all his sarcasm, was the adult in the room tonight. Meanwhile, conservative circles were fired up. Right-wing pundits labeled the moment as a cultural victory, praising both Gutfeld's sharp words and Leavitt's quiet strength. Karoline Leavitt herself finally broke her silence a few hours later. But in classic form, she didn't engage in mudslinging. She tweeted, "I've faced worse from the left, but shout out to a Greg Gutfeld for standing up when it mattered. Respect. Short, classy, confident." It wasn't long before Greg responded. No long explanation, no follow-up debate. Just a simple mic drop emoji. That post alone racked up millions of views in under 24 hours. The replies were a goldmine of praise and memes. Gutfeld bodied her live. This is why the left loses culture wars. Karoline handled that like a pro. Crockett looked petty. I've never seen someone go from smug to speechless so fast. The comment sections exploded, from Instagram reels to TikTok reaction videos. Creators jumped on the trend, breaking down the exchange, analyzing body language, and turning the moment into memes and even auto-tuned remixes. One TikTok edit, showing Crockett smirking and then freezing mid-expression after Gutfeld's "You just embarrassed yourself" line was captioned. When you realize you're the villain in your own story. It hit 2 million views in 12 hours. On YouTube, creators across the political spectrum posted reaction videos, with thumbnails like, "Crockett humiliated on national TV, Greg Gutfeld, the last man standing." Why this moment broke the internet. Fox News gave the segment prime coverage, looping it on The Five, Tucker Carlson Originals replays, and morning analysis shows. Meanwhile, conservative outlets like The Daily Wire, Town Hall, and Breitbart declared it a defining moment in media discourse. But it wasn't just conservative media that took notice. Even some independent liberal voices acknowledged the damage Crockett had done, not just to herself, but to the credibility of political discourse. One viral thread read, "We all love some snark. But if you're going to call yourself a leader, don't tear down other women on national TV." Crockett came off mean, not smart. And for Gutfeld, the moment wasn't just a win. It was a reminder of why he's built a loyal fan base. He didn't yell. He didn't take the low road. He simply called out hypocrisy, stood by a colleague, and reminded millions watching that real debate isn't about dismissing someone because of their looks. It's about tackling ideas. The moment also gave Karoline Leavitt something that no speech, no rally, and no ad campaign could buy: national sympathy and respect. Without uttering a single rebuttal, she emerged stronger, graceful under fire, dignified in the face of mockery. And Crockett? The backlash didn't stop. She issued a lukewarm statement the next day, saying her comments were taken out of context and that people need to learn to take a joke. But the internet wasn't buying it. Because when you get called out live by one of the sharpest voices in media and the crowd erupts in applause, it's hard to walk that back. This wasn't just another viral clip. This wasn't just Gutfeld delivering a clever retort, or Jasmine Crockett taking a jab that backfired. This clash, captured in just a few minutes of live television, was something much bigger. It was a snapshot of the cultural and political war playing out in America right now. On one side, you have a new wave of conservatives, young, sharp, media-savvy, and unafraid to wear their politics on their sleeve. People like Karoline Leavitt aren't trying to fit into the old mold of buttoned-up GOP insiders. She's bold, confident, and unapologetically pro-Trump. On the other side, you have Democrats like Jasmine Crockett, known for their fiery rhetoric, their take-no-prisoners style, and their ability to command attention. Crockett has built her brand on being unfiltered and aggressive, but as this moment showed, that approach can be a double-edged sword. What started as a snarky insult, intended to undermine Levit by mocking her appearance and dismissing her as inexperienced, quickly became a cautionary tale. Because in a world where everything is recorded, clipped, and shared within seconds, mockery can turn into a megaphone for your opponent. That's exactly what happened here. Gutfeld, never one to back down, didn't just defend Karoline Leavitt, he flipped the narrative. In under a minute, he transformed what could have been a forgettable jab into a moment that exposed a bigger issue: the way double standards quietly operate in media and politics. And people noticed. Because here's the thing: if the roles had been reversed, if a conservative man had mocked a progressive woman's appearance on live television, there would have been wall-to-wall outrage. Entire think pieces would have been written. Talk show panels would have spent days dissecting it. But when Crockett did it, silence from the usual critics. That is, until Gutfeld forced the spotlight back where it belonged. This moment wasn't just about defending Karoline. It was about defending consistency, about holding everyone to the same standard, regardless of party, gender, or ideology. And let's not forget what happened next. Karoline Leavitt walked away with her reputation elevated. She didn't need to clap back. She didn't need to get defensive. She let the internet and Gutfeld do the talking. Her calm, classy tweet gained traction across both political camps, showing she had the one thing Crockett seemed to lack in that moment: grace under pressure. On the other hand, reminded viewers why he's earned the nickname the King of Late Night. In a media landscape full of noise, Gutfeld has a unique ability to cut through the clutter with razor-sharp humor and a brutal sense of timing. He doesn't yell. He doesn't need to. His confidence is in the facts, in the delivery, and in knowing exactly when to strike. And this time, he struck gold. Even days after the exchange, clips of the moment continued circulating. Political shows were still talking about it. TikTok. Edits kept popping up. And both Gutfeld and Leavitt gained new followers from viewers who were watching closely. Not just the drama, but the lesson underneath it. That lesson? Mocking your opponent might get a laugh, but it rarely wins you the argument. In today's political theater, Americans are hungry for leaders who know how to debate, not just dominate. Who can hold their own without resorting to cheap shots? Who can disagree without degrading? Crockett's approach may fire up her base, but it also alienated moderates and independents who see right through performative punches and personal jabs. Especially when those attacks come at the expense of another woman's credibility. Ironically, Crockett's attempt to discredit Levitt only boosted her profile. It gave her visibility, sympathy, and a moment to shine, without saying a single controversial word. And that's the part Jasmine Crockett, and maybe others, might not have expected. Because in 2025, it's not just what you say that matters. It's how you say it, and who claps back. In the end, Crockett walked into that studio trying to own the moment, but Greg Gutfeld, he left with it in his back pocket. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more straight-shooting stories like this one, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss when the truth hits live TV. Drop a comment below. Whose side are you on? Team Gutfeld, Team Crockett, or somewhere in the middle? Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.